Nope.
So Philip, you're sitting in front of a concrete wall outside because you like the heat, or what?
Yeah, it's a little smoldering, but you know, I wanted to sit somewhere a little prettier than my desk, where you just see like, you know, Chloe's got a nice office. My office is nice, but it's the view of Pete's desk behind me, and it's not that nice. So I decided to come up here, and I got a little swamp cooler going, which is a little loud, but it's at least blowing like 85, 87 degree air in my direction, which is significantly cooler than the ambient temperature. So I'm doing all right.
Yeah, well, it's my cool Welsh blood. You know, I've got to be in the 60s, so I'm well in the 60s at the moment and enjoying it.
Way
I
better.
bet you are, yeah. Welsh blood.
Yeah,
All right.
it's got a
Well, I've
Wi-Fi.
got German blood, which means
Okay, we are live. We are being recorded, and we are live over on the Facebook side of things. Wow, Zoom is making things a little faster and easier.
all right.
How that works.
Great.
So that is fantastic. And looks like we have a few people already on with us, and that's great. A lot of our regulars, thank you again for joining us. This is also a part of the Wine Origins Alliance Taste-A-Thon, International Taste-A-Thon. So we'll get into that in a minute, just as Facebook catches up to us and we get people joining us over there. So Steve and Martha Hewitt, you are zooming in. Good to have you back again from Columbus, Ohio. Sounds like it's hot over there today with rain. Wow, coming tomorrow. Okay, all right, I gotcha. And oh, they opened a 17 Beguiling there, Philip. So is that one of your first vintages or one of Scott's last?
16 was my first vintage here, but Scott was with us until 18. I did the blending on my own of the 18s because he had left before then. We blend very late, but 2019 is officially my first vintage harvest and everything all together, I guess. So.
Got it.
So I have my paws on this wine, but I cannot claim to be the head winemaker because I wasn't.
Phil, when I came a few days ago, which vintage did we taste?
17. So you actually
17.
took a 17 Beguiling home.
Yeah,
That was your
my
favorite.
from the lineup.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Jess is sitting across from me. She's like, yep,
Yes.
that's good right now. Cool. So yeah, 17s is what we're pouring at the moment. You guys are doing 18s, getting ready to release 19s, right?
We're at L'Aventure or Brecken?
Yeah.
L'Aventure, we are pouring the 18s and we release actually the 19s to our members. So yeah,
we've got a couple of 17s that we held back. I think we got maybe a pallet or two wines. We're well into the 18s, and obviously on the whites and the rosés, we're pretty much finishing up the 20s. We're almost sold out.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, we're sold out of the 20 rosé. I'm glad that you still have some.
We still have a few cases.
Because I love your guys' rosé. That's actually the rosé I modeled our rosé after, which is something that we talk about a lot. It's funny that, you know, Stefan approaches making the rosé very differently than I do. But my goal when I first got to law was like, I want our rosé to be more like L'Aventure's rosé because I love your guys' rosé. So
Thank you.
You know, we only made 305 cases of the 20s, which good and bad. I mean, I think it's the best rosé we've ever made. It's a beautiful wine. I think you had a couple of bottles for sure, but
yeah,
it's gone. And that's the bad part, right?
300 cases, yeah, gone in a heartbeat.
I know, before it ever even really got proper hot. So I'm hoping that everybody that has a bottle is enjoying it on these hot days.
I
There's a
hope so.
common theme here. We're out of our rosé too, and we made 300 and something cases, and we've been out for a month now. Yeah.
So we're lucky to have the rosé that we're having today from L'Aventure, which is great. We'll get into the wine too. I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off here. Not kicked off, but it sounds weird when you say it that way when you're on the internet, actually, to be honest. All right, so welcome everybody. Chris Toronto from the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance, and thank you for tuning in to another Paso Wine Hour. This is a special one this time around because it is part of the International Taste-A-Thon. And what that means is that there is an organization called the Wine Origins Alliance. And what they are all about is the protection of place names. So the fact that we are Paso and nobody else can be Paso Robles, and that Bordeaux can only be Bordeaux, Champagne, Rioja, and so many other signers on to this pact that is out to protect these place names from ever being plagiarized or used in ways that are not true. And so they are hosting this International Taste-A-Thon. And so we are really honored actually to be a part of this virtual event because along with our fellow members of the Wine Origins Alliance, we've worked kind of really hard in protecting these place names in regions like our own. And so you can learn more about the Wine Origins Alliance by going over onto Twitter and to Facebook and Instagram. Just look them up. You can Google them. You can also be a part of the global conversation. Follow #WineOnEarth. And with all of that being said, I want to introduce our panel and the concept for today. Something you might notice is on this panel, and I'm not sure if they even know this too, but they have accents. And they have accents for a reason, because they, of course, were maybe born somewhere different, maybe brought up somewhere a little different than Paso, outside of our country, but they found Paso. They all have this commonality, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how did you find Paso? How did you come to be in Paso? What attracted you here? Some of them have worked in other wine regions, of course, as well. And so we're going to get into that story. First, I'd like to introduce Chloe Aseo Fabre with L'Aventure. Hello, Chloe.
Hi, Chris. Hello, everybody. Well, thanks for having me. This is very exciting. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think I have an accent. I'm completely fluent. You should listen to my father, and then yes, I'd agree. There's an accent. But so I'm originally from France. But to tell you the truth, today I'm technically more American than French because I moved to Paso when I was 7 years old. So I've spent more time in Paso than France. However, we didn't come to Paso just like that. It was definitely an adventure, hence the name. So I don't know if this is the right time to kind of.
We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second here. I'm going to keep introducing everybody, and then we're going to go over a quick overview for our international audience that's tuning in, a little overview of where Paso is, because just in case we have some people that don't know where we are, I want to bring you up to speed on that. Damien Grindley with Brecon Estate, welcome.
Yep. I'm originally from Wales, small Welsh island. There's definitely a Gaelic theme going on here. It's kind of place that rains 20 times a day and then sunshine and hail and everything. But if my accent is confusing, I did shack up with a Sheila. That's a polite way of saying I married an Australian. And so my Antipodean friends will probably pick up a little bit of that accent, especially as we work our way through these classes. So anyway, Damien from Brecon Estate, sort of awesome. Spiritually Australian, roots in Paso Robles, and yet heritage is a small Welsh island.
Awesome. And also joining us, Philip Under with Law Estate Wines.
Hello. So I'm German, but I actually moved to America at a similar age as Chloe. So I moved to America when I was 9, a couple of years later. So I don't think I have much of a German accent, but a bit of the Queen's English pokes up every once in a while because I did spend 8 years in New Zealand making wine there. And then a bit of time in France as well. I was at Chateau Angelus and Saint-Emilion for 3 years. Very close to where Chloe and her dad were originally from in making wine, same little town. So that linked us up in a way when I first moved to Paso. And I think I'm the newest member to the Paso winemaking kind of scene internationally. I just got here in 2016, so I'm pretty fresh. but I love this area. I think we've got something really special here. People, terroir, wines, everything included. So super happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Philip. So let's do that quick overview. I'm going to share my screen. And so we can just do a quick, where in the world is Paso? Hopefully I get this a little bit more right than the last time I did one of these, actually just the other day, where you'd think that after a year of doing this, I would actually know, how to actually share my screen. And I'm going to trust my fellow screen mates here to tell me that they're actually seeing my screen, which
We are.
would be nice if it would actually do what it's supposed
Nice picture of the rock.
to. Yeah. Is it full
Sand
screen,
spit.
though? Philip, am I full screen?
You're not
No.
full screen. I see the ones on the left too.
Okay, so I'm doing that again. Hang on a second here, you guys. Once again, you would think that I know exactly what
It's
I'm
a
doing.
pretty picture though.
Yeah,
Now you're gone.
yeah, I'll be back. Hang on.
We'll keep the party going. Don't worry.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry.
We should speak in
All
tongues.
right, we've got time.
There we are.
I might
Okay.
just melt in a little while, but these guys are at least.
I'm sorry,
all
you're
there.
outside, aren't you? And I'm
Yeah.
here totally like lagging.
I'm getting refreshers of
There.
rosé constantly.
And I'm just blowing it right
Full
now.
screen, mate.
You
You
know
got
what?
it sorted. See, there's the Queen's English right there. Mate and sorted. Americans don't use that.
Okay,
Nope.
where
There we
are,
go.
we see this? Yes, we see the
Yes,
word.
Yes.
we do.
All
I
righty.
see the world.
This is planet
Blue marble.
And that is, of course, North America. That is California. We're getting in close. This is San Luis Obispo County. So now we kind of know where we are. We are on the central coast of California. We get a little closer and we are in San Luis Obispo County. We're really close to the ocean where the little towns of Cayucas and Cambria are. This gives us a little idea of the topography. We have a big mountain range right here in between us, Paso, and the ocean, which is really important. We're going to get into the Adelaida district. This is kind of the Templeton Gap area, and we're going to get up into Willow Creek first, actually. And as we move north, so we can see some of these conically shaped hills, you kind of get an idea of how dynamic Paso really can be with so many, different geological uplift happening.
I should wave. Yeah.
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah.
We just went by.
No, we're close anyway.
Here, this is actually out by Topless Creek, looking in that valley where Halter Ranch is, of course, as well. Then we see to the north how steep and how truly mountainous it gets as you're looking up towards Big Sur. And then we go a little east, and that'll give us an idea of where town is. And this is the Salinas River that flows north there in the middle of town where all that green is, the center of town of Paso itself. We're going to go a little southeast into the El Pomar district, where you can see there's still a lot of hill variance. There is something, it does become more gently rolling hills, but as you can see, as we get up into the Estrella district, that elevation starts again as you go further east. And we're going to look back now on where we were. That's the San Andreas Fault right down there over to the right. But looking east from that mountain range back towards the ocean, we shouldn't forget that we do have an AVA south of us that's part of Paso, which is the Santa Margarita Ranch. And that's what this would be up against the Santa Lucia mountain range. It's a really neat area, by the way. If you go to pasowine.com right now, you can see our latest blog that is on the Santa Margarita Ranch AVA. And so now we just look back at where we've been. So that oriented you a little. This is the Paso AVA. So when we look at it, we can see that there's 11 different districts. We also cover the York Mountain AVA, which is not one of the districts within Paso, but it's with Paso. We've been marketing them and supporting them for quite some time. So, and then what I wanted to do is, here's something that's important that I want to share is that mountain range that you saw in our flyover. That's the mountain range. This is Morro Bay. Paso is Paso. and today in particular, because we get really warm during the day. But because we have this really great relationship with the Pacific Ocean, here you see Morro Bay and the greater Estero Bay, we are able to cool off. And so when you look at that mountain range, you think Paso's on the other side of it. And so as hot air rises, it creates a vacuum essentially that pulls in the cool air from the Pacific Ocean and helps cool us off. And so today it's about 100, but yet it's forecast to get down to close to 52 overnight. And that's really important. We'll talk about that. I'll let our winemakers talk about why that's important here after a little bit, once we get into wines and all of that. But first though, I want to come back around to stop sharing my screen and let's talk about origin stories. Let's talk about how our friends on the screen got here and how their brands came to be. And I do want to start with Chloe once again to say, how did L'Aventure start and why Paso of all of the places in the world, especially a little background, Chloe's father, Stefan, was making wine in Bordeaux, as Philip had mentioned already. Why Paso?
Good question. Well, it was definitely an adventure to come here because we moved in 1998. So 1998, Paso was not the Paso of today. It was definitely more of a cowboy town with just a few wineries, which today it's really on the map. We saw the evolution over the years. It's pretty incredible. But so we're originally from Bordeaux, and me personally, I didn't really have a choice on why Paso, because again, I was 7. My 2 older brothers, oldest brother was 16. My parents said, when we move, you'll get a puppy. When you're a kid, that's all you care about. So I was like, sure, let's move. Let's get a puppy. But my dad, who was making wine in Bordeaux for about 17 years, got tired of the restrictions and the regulations that come with, making wine in Bordeaux, in France in general. But especially Bordeaux, because when you're in Bordeaux, you live Bordeaux, you eat Bordeaux, you drink Bordeaux, you do everything Bordeaux.
Eating Bordeaux is not so bad.
I know, I have to say it could be worse, even drinking Bordeaux. But he was starting to get frustrated, wanted to have more freedom when it came to making wines. He had gone on a few trips around the world, helped some friends make wine in Lebanon, and where there are no restrictions in Lebanon, and he was playing with Syrah and Cabernet, Petit Verdot, and more and more he realized that maybe it was time to start something new. My mom was up for the adventure, and hence the name L'Aventure. And so they started to think of different areas, different places to possibly start this new adventure. South Africa was actually a spot they considered. Politically wise, though, not so stable back in the time, 1998, 97. South America was actually another option. But again, my dad, a true vigneron, a real farmer, didn't care so much about the appellation. And he saw himself in the middle of nowhere with, beautiful terroir. My mom said, you have to come down to reality a little bit. You have 3 children. We need proper education, a proper social life. So that was kind of put on the side. And so finally, California was their choice. But as good tourists, they went straight to Napa. And even though my dad thought he was very rich when he came to, after selling his properties in France, he came to Napa and was Napa poor, as they say, because already 20 years ago, it was extremely well established. And he was really looking for a beautiful piece of land. And he felt like he was escaping Bordeaux to find the new world Bordeaux. And it's not really what he was looking for. And it's after speaking to a few winemakers in that region, most of them speaking French because he didn't really speak a word of English. They said, look into the Central Coast. And Central Coast for them meant obviously Paso Robles. It meant Santa Inez, Santa Barbara. And so they visited all of these places, and Paso was actually the last spot they visited. They spent about 3 days, both my parents, and in that time they visited about 30 pieces of land, all bare land. But right away, they fell in love. They fell in love with the small town. More importantly, as they were visiting and they fell upon what is now L'Aventure, they fell in love with those rolling hills that we have. It was the coup de foudre, like we say in France. And so they said, Banco, this is where it's going to be. L'Aventure today, so it's a total of 129 acres. But there's roughly 60 acres planted, and this is it. So we have the winery in the middle with our tasting room. And as you can see all around, we have 4 big rolling hills. And my dad, being a true farmer, he saw the potential of planting, getting all these different exposures. More importantly, he also noticed here and there that there was limestone. At the time, he asked the owner if he could rent a tractor and dig some holes. The owner said yes. I mean, this is crazy to think. I don't think today an owner would say yes to that. But he realized it was all limestone. And so that was another big part of the reason he fell in love with this particular land. And lastly, being on the west side, being so close to the ocean, which you mentioned roughly, and, you know, I'll let everyone kind of explain. But for us, you know, being so close to this ocean, we have these thermic shock between day and night. And it really allows us to make wines that are, you know, elegant and not just bodybuilder style wines. And then finally, as you can see from this picture, as of 2016, our adventure continued, and we actually built underground caves and a brand new tasting room. And this is actually our exposed wall of the limestone. So when I say, you know, it's limestone, I'm not kidding, it's limestone. And what's beautiful about limestone is that, you know, it's like a sponge. It absorbs 10 times its size in water, naturally drains it when the vines need it. So it's a dream. And the caves in general, you have this consistency and humidity and temperature where it can be 106 outside like it is currently, and inside it's still roughly about 60 degrees, and humidity wise anywhere from 75 to 80, 85. So that's how we got to Paso, and that was back in 1998, and we're still going strong. And yes,
Excellent, thank you.
been
Sorry,
pleasure.
the PowerPoint was sticking there, and so it kept
No worries.
skipping a little, so we didn't get to that other picture, but we could always come back to that later. But yeah, that's a great story, and it's so interesting too, because as you said, and as we've all known, like your dad was able to basically come to Paso to be able to make wines that were outside of, say, the AOC kind of rules that he was
Yes.
basically being bound by.
Yes, and today, you know, we're known for crazy blends, which ironically enough, even though they were crazy back then, today a lot of them have been accepted and used with our peers. But back then, you know, Paso, it was truly a blank canvas. I mean, it still is. I feel that's what makes Paso so magical, is the fact that there are no restrictions. People, you know, winemakers can really be creative and try new things. And for us, you know, back in 1998, that was exactly what he was looking for, to be able to make blends like our Optimus or Estate Cuvée, which is a Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Petit Verdot blend. Obviously, in Bordeaux, if you did that, well, you would not be Bordeaux, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But,
and that's
but,
what this is all about too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like this is about the place and the name of a place and what makes it so special. So yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So,
And you've made wine in a couple of different places as well, and you came to Paso now. How long ago did you establish Brecken Estate?
So we bought the property in October 2012, but I think I actually first came to Paso in '97 as well. I was working for a larger company up in Monterey after graduating from winemaking school as a master's in Australia. My first, actually, no, it would have been 98. Sorry, 98, I would have been here. So that's the relationship with Paso. As you probably heard, I was originally Welsh, and I kind of stumbled into the drinks trade in the UK. And the UK, for some extent, is great because it doesn't make its own wine, or it didn't really back then. it's a very international cosmopolitan wine market. So you get to taste everything from around the world, and you're not blinkered necessarily by, being in Italy and feeling like have to drink Italian wines or something. So you get a very international palate very quickly. And, I loved it. I was at the forefront of Australian wines coming into the UK. And eventually I had the opportunity to reinvest in my future, because my original degree was horticulture, which ironically helps with the viticulture. And I was a little bit of a drifter for a while. I traveled the world, going down the deepest and longest caves in the world. And those of you who can connect the dots there would realize that most caves are in limestone or marble or all calcareous soils. And that's an eventual link down the track, not knowing it at the time, to drinking wine in those sort of remote caving areas, and then wanting to make wine in Paso Robles later. But eventually I headed off to Australia to do a master's in winemaking. And I did the classic thing. You wander the world, making wine and learning from all these other great wineries. And you end up in some strange places, and eventually you find somewhere that everything just connects, and this is where you want to be. Not just from a wine stylistic point of view, but it's also from a sociological point of view. I mean, I love Australia. It's one of those places where you lean up against the back of the pickup truck and over the fence, and you talk to people, and everyone's your mate. That's just something I get from Paso. I love the limestone soil thing, the calcareous soils. That's something that all connected with Paso. And the caver thing is the exploration thing. And so where Paso was a blank canvas, you could buy a hillside and no one's planted it, and you can put any grape you want on there, and you're not exactly sure what you're going to get. That's that explorer thing coming together. So that sort of all connected for me. And they're toyed with making wine in the UK, but the land prices where you want to make the wine on a calcareous soil is stockbroker belt. I couldn't afford stockbroker belt, so here I am in Paso Robles. Yes, I made wine in the Coonawarra and Barossa and Adelaide Hills. Yes, I've made wine in Italy and Sonoma Napa and France and what have you. But it eventually all drew me up to Paso Robles, and we're really happy that we came here. And that's the other great thing about Paso is wherever you are, you've got your own story. And so, wherever somebody's maybe on Peachy Canyon, we've got pink rocks, or we've got the highest elevation, or we've got, the best whale fossils in a vineyard. We can claim that we're pretty much as close you can get to the ocean on this big block of the main block of calcareous soils. And there's good reason for that. So there's a little bit about my story, a very circuitous route of getting to Paso. Picked up a few accents on the way. I even did a year in Sweden, but you'd have to get me really drunk to get that to come out. But there you go. And I say that's the thing. Paso has grown beyond the ma and pop winemakers that have been here for a long time, and then a lot of professional winemakers like myself and other professional companies have come in, and we know what we're doing, and we're able to elucidate the quality and have a big global picture, and bring in some of the ideas that we've seen elsewhere in the world, and then sort of take them to the next level in Paso.
I like what you've said there about taking what you've learned maybe from other areas and applying them here. I think that as we see more and more people in production, as a matter of fact, coming to Paso, whether they're coming from other places internationally, because we do get plenty of them as interns and the like, but also from up north, from the north coast of being Napa, being Sonoma and the like, and coming here and bringing some of their best practices or their things that they've learned over time. And I think that's what helps keep Paso evolving. And I would say in a sense, Philip, you've really helped to do that as well, because you came from elsewhere, and and from a formal education as well, and bringing those tools being in your head and what you've done and applied them to Paso. And I'd love for you to tell your story now, please.
Yeah, so well, I mean, like I said, I'm from Germany originally, but my kind of journey into wine began when I moved to New Zealand back in 2007. So I moved to New Zealand to pursue my master's degree in enology and viticulture at the University of Auckland, similar to Damien, who went to presumably Roseworthy in Australia. It was just an amazing experience. It suited me very well. I felt like it was the perfect fit. I was able to kind of combine my love for nature and farming and being outdoors with being able to craft something in a science and artistic kind of way. You have an ability as a winemaker to really express yourself in what people end up enjoying in a glass of wine. For me personally, that influence is more in the vineyards than it is in the winery, but everybody has their own kind of approach, which makes it very personal. So I started traveling the world making wine in New Zealand, but then I'd make wine in France for half the year and come back to New Zealand and bounce backwards and forwards. I was a bit of a vagabond as well. I spent 6 years not being in any one place for longer than 6 months. And in 2015, that brought me to Screaming Eagle in Napa. And after our harvest there, we had this incredible harvest. It ended up being a perfect wine, according to Robert Parker, at least. It was an incredible experience. We all had a lot of fun together. The winemaker, Nick Gislason, decided to take us all on a little trip after harvest down to Honada, another property that the owner owns in the Santa Rita Hills. And on the way down there, we stopped in Paso. We drank some coffee at Spearhead, which is pretty damn good coffee. And from there, we ended up going to both Booker and Taste It with Eric Jensen, who's quite a character and quite a personality. And, I feel like we hit it off right away. He swatted a fly off my bald head, and I was like, I kind of like this guy. After that, we tasted at Saxum, and I was floored with the quality of the wines. I absolutely loved the wines that we were tasting. At that point, my experience in winemaking was mainly New Zealand, Bordeaux, and Napa. I had no idea that California made Rhone varieties that well and that we were capable of that. So I put out my feelers and asked some people where there might be a good match for me. And Law Estate was really at the top of a lot of people's lists as far as, quality property that actually might be looking for somebody. So off my resume went, and Oliver, our general manager, called me within half an hour, which I certainly didn't expect, because I was sitting in a hot tub with my dad on my second or third glass of single malt. And apparently that conversation went pretty well. I don't remember it as well as it probably went. So the rest, as they say, is history. I joined the team in 2016, became the head winemaker at the end of 2018. And, I didn't have a chance like Chloe or Damien they started a project from the very beginning in Paso, but, Law Estate was the inaugural vintage is 2010. So I feel like coming on board 6 years later, I still joined the team at infancy when it comes to wineries and estates. I mean, you look at the estates in the old world, and 8 or 9 generations in, they're still not considered old estates sometimes. So I was able to join the team here and join a vision. Don and Susie Law found this beautiful property, high elevation, up to 1,900 feet, sitting on almost pure calcareous limestone, which is something that ties all three of us together. And when I came here, I immediately saw the potential. I knew that this was a place that I could make some absolutely incredible wines with personality, with some intrigue, and I haven't looked back since. It's been a beautiful adventure so far, and I think there's great things to come.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. And since you've taken over winemaking there, you know, it's just been some great stuff that, I mean, it was great to begin with. I know Scott was, Holly was the founding consulting winemaker, I believe it was out there, but it's just been great stuff. And the brand itself as a newer brand is doing some good things out there and bringing attention to Paso. I know that because we often hear that and
Yeah.
here at the Wine Alliance. So it's good stuff. I wanted to next, actually, because we're at about 3:30 here, I'd love to get into wines and talk about what we're drinking. And so let's start though, because we are going white, rosé, and red. That's kind of fun, right? So for a white wine today, we've got a Brecon Viognier. This is from the Adelaida district, 2020. I think it's not released yet. Is that right, Damien?
That's correct. We don't usually release this one until the early fall, and really it is just bottled. But we're sold out of our rosé. We're all out of our white wines, which are mostly Albarino and Albarino blends. So when we come to this little soiree today, we really only had Viognier to pour. So there we go.
Wow.
And this ties in a whole bunch of things. This is a site that we've taken the Viognier off for a number of years. And we always used to blend it with some cool climate Viognier, because this particular Viognier, which is from a vineyard called La Vista Vineyard, which is on Adelaida Road, so very much of our neck of the woods. Most things here are sort of 5 or 10 minutes by tractor from our winery. South-facing slope, so it tends to ripen pretty earlier, and so by blending in that cool climate stuff, we gave it that little zippy edge and some sort of complexing characters. But the last few years, we've been playing with a little shade cloth. So we put some. This is the first year that the shade cloth has been on the vines, and actually pushed the harvest date back 2 weeks.
Oh,
And
the difference.
yeah, a huge difference. And it also, on a south-facing slope, it actually made the top to the bottom of the slope much more consistent, and you didn't get those berries that were fully sun exposed and, you know, almost that golden color. So it very much pushed the spectrum of flavors we were getting away from the voluptuous, somewhat cloying Viogniers you can see, which are great in the winter. But when we've got this, you know, Paso is all about this beautiful outdoor living and summer sunshine, and we've got this beautiful terrace, and of course in COVID everyone's tasting outside, so you know, it's that al fresco dining sort of thing. So we preferred that crispness to come in. So actually, by putting the shade cloth on, we've been able to cut out the cool climate component and just go to a pure a single vineyard example of Viognier. So this is Adelaida district, which is on the west side of Paso Robles. For those who are not familiar with Paso Robles, it is a south-facing calcareous hilltop. I'd say it's about 1,600 feet at the top of the vineyard. Again, the only thing that, very simple winemaking, we bring it in, we press it out, we ferment it. It is fermented in oak and partially in stainless steel, and then it's partially gone through ML. We basically, and even one of the barrels has a little bit of an acacia component to it. The heads are acacia, and we do a little bit of leaf stirring, clean it up, put it in a bottle, and then we usually leave this around about 4 or 5 months before release. So you guys are getting to see a sneak preview. The aromatic's always great. Again, I think this will richen up a little bit in time before we actually release it, as we're going into the fall, that Thanksgiving turkey and everything else. So I'm actually sitting in front of the rolling racks. If people are not familiar with those, these racks enable the barrels to be rotated. So you can actually stir the lees in the barrel without actually having to open the bung, let some air in. So I don't know. Yeah, you can see that. See this one? Oh, that one's full. Oh, that's empty. You see that? I'm rotating the barrel. It's that easy. And
Nice.
empty. But that's how we stir our lees in our barrels. So you're actually sitting in the white cellar at the moment, and that's my cool Welsh blood. I can't handle the heat of the day, even though it's only been about 100 degrees for about an hour today. And I sent Chris some photographs earlier this morning of actually the fog rolling in that he's clearly forgotten about. So
I'm sorry.
he's going to bring those up unless he's technically challenged again.
I am not that technically challenged.
Here we go. Here we go. Those are the caves at L'Aventure, mate.
I know.
Hold on. How much did you pay him to bring up the L'Aventura photographs on Brecon?
Nothing, I promise. Nothing.
Yeah, there's some deals going on around
I think
here. I can tell.
yeah. Very suspicious.
I don't have any pictures
lost
actually. I didn't submit any. So if you want to show L'Aventure again, that would be perfect.
Look, we're on full screen. Actually, this is
there you
a
Oh, what the heck?
Oh, there it is again.
See L'Aventure again.
I'm telling
This
you,
is
my
a beautiful
PowerPoint is
picture of
stuck
the
right now.
soils at
Right,
Loa
okay.
Estate.
So that photograph that you saw briefly is actually fantastic because it says everything in one photograph. Not that we'll ever know, but that ridge in the back of the photograph is that ridge
I'm trying.
that Chris was talking about earlier.
Okay, there. We're just gonna.
There's that ridge. Look at that.
Look at that ridge. Right. And look how the clouds on top of the ridge, they're not clouds, they're fog. So
Yeah, and they're actually just rolling off the back of it, right?
right. So we sit in the sun, but we have that cooling influence of that cool air running down the hill from the fog. Now, the other side of that ridge, you might, in a normal year, get about 30 to 35 inches of rain. I'm not going to convert that into metric. I've forgotten how to do. But where we are, we get about 22 to 25 inches. The winery's kind of hidden down in the hollow there.
That's if we're lucky, mate. We haven't gotten 25 inches this year. That's for
I've
sure.
got 18 this year, so we're doing pretty good.
Oh my God! Seriously, you're so lucky. We're at 8.
Yeah, the atmospheric river coming in from Hawaii kind of stuck here. And so this is actually a picture from this morning. So you can sort of see it's kind of hazy. And that was a nice little bit of fog coming in. It was around about 60 degrees this morning. So really
Nice.
a huge shift. And the winery's hidden in the trees there.
And that's Brecon Estate right there, isn't it?
That's Brecon, yeah. That's we're actually looking at Cab rather than Viognier, but
those are quite old vines, aren't they?
right. So these are around 50. So they're technically some of the old. I think they're actually now the oldest cab in Paso, and it's a bit of a labor of love to keep them going, and it's definitely something we enjoy doing. So.
Are the yields starting to really kind of go down, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's on a 12-foot wide by 6-foot spacing, so you're never going to have a huge yield anyway.
No, it's big spacing, yeah.
It's naturally cropping at around so 1.8 to 2.2 tons of the acre.
As long as it's over 1.5, I reckon you keep it.
Yeah, so that's where we're at the moment. But anyway, the great thing about Brecon, I suppose, is I've got that cool British blood. My wife's Australian. She's a sun worshipper. So I was trying to get as close to the ocean that I could get and get those cool fogs and cool my blood down. And she was trying to get as close to Paso so she could do the sun worshiping. And so we settled on this place because, this is pretty much as close as you can get to the ocean while being on that main block of limestone. So you're close to the fog and close to the cooling effect. Now you can get closer to the ocean. There are wineries such as Justin who are closer or further west, but they're actually no closer to the ocean because the
northwest
doesn't run north south. It runs southeast northwest. So anyway, that's where we're at Brecon. The Viognier is I'm excited that this is a pure example of a vineyard, and we've gone single vineyard on this going forward. And it's taken a few years to get there, to work with this vineyard. It's that experience over time, such that we can offer it as a single vineyard. So you guys are getting a sneak preview. We'll release this around September sometime.
Thank you.
It's
Yes.
delicious.
thank
I mean, the
you. It is
mouthfeel
very
and
pretty.
everything is the aromatics. It's wonderful. Philip,
Yeah.
you were saying something about the wine? Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, I mean, I love this wine because it's all Viognier on the nose. It's got these beautiful apricot and rich, bold kind of flavors, floral notes on the nose. But then on the palate, just like you said, Damien, there's this tension and this freshness that you actually almost don't expect from the nose. You almost expect something broader. So it's this really beautiful juxtaposition in the sense that you've got all this ripeness and beautiful, apricot kind of characteristic on the nose that you would expect. But then on the palate, there's enough freshness and tension to keep it lively and kind of more appealing for food and all of those kinds of characteristics. So I really like this wine. You're gonna have to a couple of bottles back from me. Don't sell out on it too quickly.
Yeah.
And I think you really see the European influence in my Bordeaux wines because of the old vines and the calcareous soil and the natural bright acidity that does that. So that they can be akin more to a European Bordeaux style than necessarily a Napa style. With the Rhones, maybe there's more the New World influence from Australia shows through than possibly more of the Rhone influence. The Viogniers, I think my foot's a little bit, it's a sort of halfway house, I think, somewhere between the two. Probably it's a Paso style, which is where we want to be in 20 years' time, I'm sure.
Either way, I like it.
Before we move on to the rosé, I'd love, Chloe, for you to say a little bit about what you were thinking on this wine and your impressions of it.
I mean, what Phil said, it's the nose. I'm amazed by the nose. I get the apricot, same, but in the body, I was expecting even more of a fruit forward, fruit bomb, but it's not at all the case. It's super well structured. I really, really like it.
Yeah,
I really do.
This wine. Steve Hewitt wanted to ask, and I actually already did say it in the chat, but at least for our other watchers, our other viewers, is Brecon the former Norman estate? And yes, it is. It is the former Norman estate, is where Brecon exists. And when Damien and his wife purchased it some years ago, they went through a full renovation over there, and it's something very different to behold for sure. So definitely check it out when you're next time in Paso, because it's a beautiful property and a beautiful tasting room.
Yeah, we totally, it was a visionary planting, if you like, early on, but we wanted to get away from the Norman image. We completely renovated and reskinned the building, won a whole bunch of design awards for it. And then the mixture of varietals and things that we're doing is chalk and cheese. So we still doff our hat to where the winery comes from. We still make 200 or 300 cases of Zinfandel every year, which was probably arguably Norman's thing, as a look back to the past. But we're a completely different entity.
Yeah, and Art Norman, of course, one of the pioneers of Paso as well. So that's great. L'Aventure, the rosé, we are looking at the 2020 rosé that is next up. And I want to run through the varieties here really quick. We've got 35% Syrah, 33 Grenache, 19 Mourvedre, 7 Graciano, and 6 Petit Verdot. And it is all from the estate there. Chloe, talk to us a little bit about this wine, please.
So our rosé, it's a saignée method. My dad say it's a fake rosé in a sense. And the reason he says that is because we don't actually pick our fruit for the rosé. We've always done the saignée method. And since the beginning, when we moved here, in France, rosé, it's definitely part of our day-to-day wines. It's kind of like water. It's our aperitif wine. And when we moved here, it's actually my mom that was very sad and disappointed to see that there wasn't many rosés. Rosé wasn't as accepted. It was more seen as, at the time, white Zinfandel, not the Provence style rosé that, you know, we now are trying to make. And so my mom said, you know, Stéphane, you have to make a rosé. So that's how it started. And at first, my dad, I think, very excited about the idea. He made two types of rosé. He made a Rhone style rosé and a Bordeaux style rosé. So for a while, we had two rosés. And then it's been now, I would say, probably 8 years that we've only just made the one, which, like you said, the blend is a little chaotic. It has a little bit of quite a few of the varietals that we have on our vineyard, but it works. And to tell you the truth, our main goal is to make a Provence style rosé. And so what I mean by that, it's light, crisp, nice acidity, super light in color. And usually, you know, each year it gets lighter and lighter. 100% tank fermentation, obviously no malolactic fermentation. And it's really meant to be enjoyed, you know, when you get off work, for dinner, after dinner, the whole night. It's
Breakfast.
you know, breakfast.
Breakfast wine, perfect breakfast wine.
So, but it's light and crisp, and that's really what we strive for with our rosé. And me, it's the color. It's really that rose gold color. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but personally, I think it's pretty good.
It's really delicious. Half the bottle is gone already
Yeah.
because of me, but because
I hope
the
there's
rest
some
of the
left for
team
me.
wanted some rosé apparently, and so they took
Yeah,
it.
we can definitely thank my mom on this one. And we still have some. On the contrary of Brecken and Law, we still have a little bit. We definitely make a little more than 300 cases because the goal is for us to have it all year long, just because, you know, Paso is warm almost all year long. So we need that.
But we cool off at night. Diurnal
Yes,
temperature.
yes, we do.
That's the
Thank
important
goodness.
part.
Thank you, goodness, for that.
Absolutely.
I
Philip,
hope there's some left for me to take home to my wife because she loves this rosé as well.
We'll bring some for dinner, I promise.
Perfect.
Philip, talk about this wine a little bit.
All right, so I brought the last color to the palette of colors that we've got going here. We have white, pink, and now red. So we're tasting the 2017 Sagacious. So Sagacious is 38% Mourvèdre, 33 Grenache, and then 29 Syrah. It's GSM, MGS, GMS. It really depends on what Mother Nature gives us, but roughly equal thirds of those three varieties. And Chloe was just here with a group of people, so she had me for a tasting a little while ago. So I apologize if this is a bit repetitive for you, Chloe, but in a way, it's kind of the estate blend for us. So the reason I say that is because we have so many different clones of Grenache and Mourvèdre and Syrah from all different aspects, all different little vineyard blocks. And this wine being almost equal thirds of each of those three varieties inevitably kind of draws from the widest pool of all of our vineyards. So it's a great window into what Law Estate as a property is all about. And I guess the inspiration for this wine really came from Don and Susie's love of traveling through the south of France and really kind of enjoying those wines, you know, Châteauneuf-du-Pape and the southern Rhone kind of area. And I guess in a way, this is an ode to that. It's a truly Californian law expression, but honestly, in 2017, I think what I love most about this wine is that I had the opportunity to blend it in predominantly Mourvèdre. So Mourvèdre just kind of out-etching the other two varieties. And I really like the wine like that. I think it kind of flip-flops. 18 is Grenache dominant, 19 is back to Mourvèdre dominant. But it's a very beautiful expression of the three varieties. You know, you get those rustic, earthy, kind of autumn leaf kind of characteristics that you get from the Mourvèdre. It's very brambly. And then the Grenache is brighter and more red. It has more floral notes. And then the Syrah comes in with a bit of power, structure, those kind of more gamey and almost bloody characteristics that the Syrah from the property can carry. And altogether, it creates a wine that, you know, I like to think is powerful and opulent, but then structured in a kind of delicate way. It wraps itself around a core of finesse and tension. So, these limestone soils that we have add so much to all of our wines, whether it's white, pink, or red. You have the ability to get a tremendous amount of ripeness and concentration in the fruit while retaining a lot of freshness and tension. And I think that's something very special about this place. I look out into the distance because I'm literally looking at our vineyards at the moment, and it's a beautiful spot, and it's an honor to get to make these wines and get to play with some pretty world-class fruit as far as I'm concerned. So.
Yeah, it's a very delicious, very savory wine.
Well balanced too.
The acid is just so incredibly like just bright and it makes your mouth just absolutely water as you have this. But you could drink this just as a drinker, just as a sipper, but with something savory as well to eat with it would be absolutely incredible. I love this wine so much.
Yeah.
Amy, and you're sitting there sipping on it, and what are you thinking?
I think he's hit the nail on the head, really. With these varieties, there's so many which ways and what ways you can blend them. And there's only so many ways that actually work well with particular fruit passes you've got. So as he said, you need to adapt it every year. Mother Nature throws different things at you with different varietals every year, and you need to adapt your blend each year to, some years you can take more Mourvèdre, or the Syrah is too dominant or something. It's there should be no set recipe in my mind, and the winemaker's skill comes through to take all these disparate parts and then hit it on the nail on the head year in, year out. And I think he's done it again. So it's another layer of complexity when you're dealing with all these varieties and these different vineyard blocks. To bring it all together to make something good. It's relatively easier when you're doing a single vineyard Mourvèdre. You've only got what you've got. When you're actually trying to put these together and create something new and keep it exciting, keep it vibrant and interesting. That's the thing. Some of these blends are, if you're not careful, you put them together and they lose their interest. This one's got, for me, is an interesting wine, and that's what I look for.
Yeah, very layered. Very makes you think, for sure. I would say, Chloe, I know you had something that you wanted to say as well there.
No. I mean, for me, it's super well balanced. The 17s in general, not just Law, but in Paso, a lot more approachable, in my opinion, than other vintages. And I mean, I actually tasted through the whole lineup just a few days ago, and I was really blown away. So I'm a big fan, not just of the Sagacious, but all the wines of Law Estate. Bravo, like we say.
Merci.
Yeah, great wines, and as I said before, good things are coming out of that brand right now. As you see scores and you see things being written up about Law. So good on you there, Philip. And we have a question from the chat about Graciano, and so we've talked a little bit about it. Question about the Graciano: did you end up with Graciano on any of the properties? What did you decide to do with it when it was determined to not be Monastrell or, of course, Mourvèdre? And basically saying, just curious. So love to hear from you, Chloe.
We kept it. Yeah, we were part of the surprise. We thought it was Monastrell. We promoted it as Monastrell until we found out it was not Monastrell. And in the end, you know what? It works. We mainly use it for our co-fermentation for the For Her, which is a special cuvée for my mother. And it works. And so we decided to keep it. We don't have very much on the property, but no, we like it, and we even included a little bit in the rosé. And more we seem to include a little bit here and there. We think it just elevates some of the blends we make. So
Yeah.
It was a mistake, it was a surprise, but I think it worked out for the best.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
great. Let's back it up a little bit. So for those of you watching who might not be following on what we're talking about as far as the stake, there was a lot of Monastrell that was planted some years ago that it took a few years to eventually find out that that particular nursery, what they labeled as Monastrell, was actually Graciano. Once somebody with a little bit of knowledge questioned it, and then it took one of our winemakers to actually send it up to UC Davis to get tested, and found out, in fact, it was Graciano. So Philip, how about you? Did you end up with any, and what did you do with it?
Oh yeah, we definitely ended up with some, and we love it. We've actually planted a little bit more. It's a variety that carries a tremendous amount of freshness and tension, which is something that's kind of hard to retain in Paso and with our hot climate. So it's a beautiful blending variety for us. It doesn't have a lot of tannin on its own or structure, but it has this beautiful blackberry and fresh acidity kind of driven characteristics. So we've always utilized it in our blend called Beyond Category, which is Tempranillo dominant. And then we thought we were putting in a little bit of Monastrell and Grenache, but it turns out we're adding Graciano, which ironically is what they've been doing in Rioja for hundreds of years, right? So those two varieties go together beautifully. One kind of gives the other what the other lacks. So one has a lot of freshness and tension. The other has a lot of opulence and structure. Together, they make something absolutely beautiful. We've planted a new block of Graciano just recently that's coming into kind of full production this year, and grafted another small block that used to be Petit Syrah into Graciano. So Petit Syrah got kicked out. And it's just a beautiful variety. I think it was one of those kind of happy accidents, and so many winemakers in the area absolutely agree, where it's, you know, at the end of the day, who cares what it's called? I think Stefan said that at one point. I was talking to him, he was like, I don't give a beep what it's called. It makes great wine, so I'm going to keep it. And, you know, that's exactly our consensus as well. You know, at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding, right? I mean, I think what was it, the 2016 for her got a 100-point score, and that's Syrah and
2014.
Graciano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I mean,
you're not going to rip out a block that does that for you, right? So,
yeah. I suppose it's an easy typo. As pointed out in there, is that Monastrell
and Monastrell, yeah.
Graciano, Monastrell.
Probably the reason the error happened in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to why we all call cacao, right? It's not. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Is that
Chocolate,
like
cacao? Yeah, it was. That was mislabeled initially too. So, you know, that's why we all call it what we call it, and it was something else altogether. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Brecken completely dodged the bullet on that one. So all ours was what it was supposed to be. You know, I actually like Graciano and think it's really quite interesting for a lot of wineries who try to be in one camp, or the old world camp, or another old world camp. So, you know, they want to be a Rhone winery, a Bordeaux winery, or what have you. You know, it produced difficulties for them in that they couldn't, you know, put that rightfully on the label and still be a Rhone style blend. Doesn't affect us. You know, our blend doesn't say it's a Rhone style blend, and besides, it was the correct stuff anyway. I think it was just because we had older vines sourced from a different nursery. So we haven't planted Graciano, where we have planted more Mourvedre around the place. We got those new plantings coming online now. We got our first crop last year, but it was tiny, and there is actually a shortage around. It's hard to get at the moment because so much of it was accidentally Graciano.
How many acres, Damien, do you have planted?
On this property where I'm sitting now, this is a 40-acre piece. There's about 28 planted right now. Okay. We lease a couple of others, and we have some others in fallow at the moment. You know, at the end of the day, I've only got one hilltop here, so I've gone around and looked at from the top of the hill and contracted a lot of the hilltops around me. So that's what we do.
Cool.
Great.
So you actually have Monastrell, is that right, Damien?
Not on this property.
Oh, not on that property. Okay,
Yeah.
I was about to
One
say
of those that we contract. Yeah. but it was actually the correct stuff.
Interesting.
If you can believe it, we've gone an hour. We've actually been
Right.
chatting and tasting and getting to know and getting to share Paso now for about an hour. And so we've got actually people that are already starting to jump off. So I think what we're going to do is wrap it up. But before we do, I would love to give each of you just a quick opportunity to say a little bit about what's happening with your brand. Are you doing any tastings out in market? Are you traveling? Are you doing any special events coming up? This is your little 2 seconds to talk a little bit about what's happening with the brand and how people can maybe come and see you or see you somewhere out in market. And Chloe, I'll start with you.
I think right now the best to see us is to come see us, come to Paso. Haven't really started traveling just quite yet. I think it's going to happen, but not until later in the year. So I encourage you to come discover Paso Robles and come see us at the winery, doing the full lineup. And I think, you know, Paso right now is so excited to see people again. And we have so many different ways of showing the wines, because one thing I will say is if you can't come to see us, we also do virtual tastings and virtual tasting kits. So that's another option. So yeah, come see us.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Philip, you've got a winemaker dinner happening somewhere down south and probably other stuff.
Yeah, so I'm actually heading down to South Hills Country Club in Los Angeles tomorrow.
Wow.
So I'm going to be down there for a little winemaker dinner and pouring some wines, which is going to be fun. And then I'm back up the following day. So, you know, honestly, the same with Chloe. I think the best thing is to just come out and see us. I think people are starting to travel again and experience. And I think it's about time. I think everybody's itching to go do a little exploring and have a little adventure. So why not Paso? It's a beautiful place. You know, we've got a beautiful tasting room with incredible views. So come up and see us. I know that we're doing a little bit of market work here and there and starting to travel again, but there's nothing like coming here. You know, there's nothing that will beat the experience of seeing the vineyards and seeing the hillsides from which that you're enjoying these beautiful drops of wine. So I encourage people to come out and see us. It's a special place and the best place to enjoy our wines for sure.
Excellent. Thank you. Damien.
Look, you know, Paso's been open pretty much the whole time, apart from when we were actually forced to lock down. And, you know, a lot of the hotels and restaurants were all going strong, and it's a relatively safe place of the country to come visit. We've had very, very little COVID outbreaks. So, and when we designed this winery, you know, we couldn't have designed it better for the pandemic. You know, we've got extensive grounds, you know, we can have spread everyone out, a huge distance between groups, and we got this gorgeous outdoor warm climate, Mediterranean climate for, you know, alfresco tasting and what have you. And again, we're allowed to taste inside now in case it gets a little warmer. So again, we're in that transition period where, hey, yes, we've been doing online things. Yes, we've been doing virtual tastings, but now everything's pretty much opened up and wide open here. We're concentrating on that, getting that right, getting that experience right for people coming into town. And we're kind of moving away a little bit from spending so much time online. We'd rather see your pretty face and shake your hand and give you a glass of wine.
Awesome. Yes, and we have been open. Go to pasowine.com because we are fully open. As Damien says, we can actually host people indoors. We have no limitations now, finally, on groups gathering and things like that. So I think you're going to start seeing Paso Wine Country really come alive again. I see Mark is going to be back here in July. Mark, look us up. Go to one of these guys. Call for reservations, though, everybody, because I think a lot of wineries are still going to be sticking to that reservation system. They probably have some walk-ins available, and so you could always call and ask about that. But it's wine country is getting busy, and it's definitely alive and kicking. And so please come and visit Paso Wine or Paso Wine Country. But go to pasowine.com for all of the list of the next upcoming shows. We actually don't have one scheduled for next week. A little scheduling hiccup there. And so that one is to be determined if we're going to have a show next week or not. But otherwise, do check on pasowine.com or go to our Facebook page. You can always see us popping up as we go live on Thursdays at 3 o'clock. And thank you to the Wine Origins Alliance also for putting on the International Taste-A-Thon. We're so happy to be a part of it, so happy to be a signer on it. I want to say thank you to Chloe, to Damien, to Philip. Thanks so much for sharing your wines and your stories with everybody. Appreciate it. We'll see you
Thank
next.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
Fun.
Bye.
Bye.